The wind howled like a wounded wolf through the narrow streets of the village. Snow fell in soft, silent sheets, covering broken rooftops and worn-out paths like a white blanket of forgetfulness. It was Christmas Eve, a night of warmth, joy, and feasting for many. But not for May and Lynn. The identical twins sat quietly inside their tiny wooden shack, at the edge of the village. Their breath fogged the cold air inside. Even indoors, the chill had no mercy. The firewood had run out days ago, and the small clay stove sat lifeless in the corner. May wrapped her thin shawl tighter around Lynn. "Are you cold?" she whispered. Lynn forced a small smile. "No, I'm okay." But her trembling hands told the truth. They hadn't eaten since morning, single dry piece of bread they had split in half. Their parents had died years ago, leaving them to survive on whatever work they could find. But winter had been cruel, and work had vanished like sunlight in a storm. Outside, laughter echoed faintly from the richer parts of the village. Families gathered, cooking dumplings, roasting meat, lighting lanterns. Inside the shack there was only silence. And hunger. Hours passed. The twins lay side by side, trying to sleep through the pain in their empty stomachs. May stared at the cracked ceiling, her mind heavy. "Lynn," she said softly, "if we sleep, maybe we won't feel hungry." Lynn didn't answer. She had already fallen asleep, out of exhaustion, not comfort. May closed her eyes too, but sleep didn't come easily. Meanwhile, miles away across the snowy plains, a lone rancher rode his horse under the pale moonlight. His name was Daniel. A man of few words and a quiet heart, Daniel lived alone on a distant ranch. He had no family, no wife, no children, only his horse, his cattle, and the long, empty nights. But this Christmas Eve felt different, lonelier. He had cooked himself a warm meal, roasted meat, bread and stew. But when he sat down to eat, something stopped him. The silence, the emptiness. He stared at the extra plate across the table, untouched. After a long pause, he stood up, packed the food carefully into a cloth bundle, and stepped outside. "Maybe someone needs this more than I do," he muttered. And with that, he rode into the cold night. Back in the village, the storm grew stronger. Snow piled against doors. The wind rattled windows. Suddenly, knock, knock. May's eyes flew open. Her heart pounded. At first, she thought she imagined it. Then again, knock, knock. She quickly sat up, gently shaking Lynn. "Someone's at the door." Lynn blinked, confused. "At this hour?" May hesitated. Fear crept into her chest. But curiosity and hope pushed her forward. Slowly, she walked to the door and opened it just a crack. A tall figure stood outside, covered in snow. A horse waited behind him, breathing clouds into the cold air. The man lowered his scarf. "Evening," he said gently. "Sorry to disturb you." May froze. She wasn't used to strangers, especially not kind ones. "Yes," she replied cautiously. Daniel glanced at the dim, empty room behind her and instantly understood everything. Without asking, he held out the bundle. "I made too much food," he said simply. "Thought you might like some." May stared at it, unable to believe her ears. "Food? For them?" Lynn stepped closer, her eyes wide. Is it really for us?" Daniel nodded. "Yes." Moments later, the small shack was filled with something it hadn't known in a long time. Warmth, not from fire, but from kindness. The twins sat close together, eating slowly at first. Then hungrily. Tears filled their eyes as they tasted real food after days of hunger. "This isn't so good," Lynn whispered, her voice shaking. May looked at Daniel. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel sat quietly by the door, his hat in his hands. "Because tonight shouldn't be spent alone. Or hungry." Silence filled the room, but it was no longer empty. After they finished eating, May carefully folded the cloth. "Thank you." "We can't repay you." Daniel gave a small smile. "You already did." "How?" "You shared the meal with each other," he said. "That's more than most people do." The storm outside began to calm. For the first time in days, the twins felt full. Safe, seen. Daniel stood up to leave, but Lynn quickly grabbed his sleeve. "Will you come again?" she asked softly. Daniel paused, then nodded. "Yes." That night, as he rode back under the quiet sky, something had changed. Not just for the twins, but for him too. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. And in that small, broken shack on the coldest night of the year, a simple act of kindness turned hunger into hope, and strangers into family.